All right, everybody, welcome to tonight's episode of The Gathering. Tonight, we have a very special guest in studio with us, actually in his studio at home with us here on the live. It is Mr. Josh Morris. He is an author. He is a paranormal investigator with 20-plus years experience in the field, and he's the host of the YouTube show, the Everything Paranormal Show. So, Josh, thank you for being here with us. You also have Al James, our case manager. You have the fabulous Rhonda up in the right-hand corner, our lead psychic medium. And you have the fabulous Christina, our photographic analysis expert and one of our investigators. So, Josh, go ahead and let's get started. Tell us a little bit about Josh Morris.
Oh, geez. Well, hey, thanks. First of all, thanks for letting me be on the show. I appreciate it. You guys are a wonderful crew. The longer I've been starting to work with you guys, I mean, you guys every single one of you guys on this panel and other people that's not here have such an impressive resume. So you guys are awesome. But yeah, I've been involved off and on in the paranormal for over 25 years. Really, I don't want to get too much in detail of where it started, but basically through my whole life. And then I started really getting into actual investigations in the early 2000s when I met my wife, and we kind of came together. And we almost kind of talked a little bit about it on my last night's show, but then we actually started doing a lot of preliminary investigations for the show Ghost Hunters from TAPS when Donna was the case manager. And like I said, then eventually I ended up here and doing the show and now getting back out into live. I love researching. I love just learning all the time about the paranormal and all the cool stuff that happens out there and trying to figure it out. So,
and that's really cool because this is kind of a little sidebar. You and Christina have something in common because Christina, actually, that's what she did her photographic analysis work for, was also related to TAPS. So, Christina, you want to talk a little bit about that, where you and Josh have that in common? Or not, Christina? Can you hear me?
Yeah, that was the good old days, way back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. We had a little bit of a delay there.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, back in the day when TAPS was still in its infancy, all those pictures of mosquitoes and water vapor and the occasional something I couldn't explain was sent to me. Those were pretty cool. Broke a lot of hearts, but those were good times. A lot of good people with the TAPS.
Absolutely. And that's another cool thing.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay, but we can hear you fine audio. At least I can. Right. Can you guys hear her fine?
Yeah, I heard her.
Okay, yeah, that's the streaming. We're at the mercy of the internet, and we do have 5 streams here, so.
Okay.
But no, so that's kind of cool. So Christina, you're from Florida. Josh, you spent time in Florida, and I spent time in Florida, and Rhonda spent time in Florida. So the only weird little gal.
I don't hold any of that against any of you all either.
Thank you. We won't hold it against you for not being there.
Yeah. So Rhonda, what part of Florida were you in again? I can't remember.
I was in Kissimmee, right outside of Orlando.
And see, I was in South Florida. Josh, you were in the Panhandle, right?
Yep. We were around
St. Augustine
Beach and stuff.
Fort Walton up there, and then you were down towards St. Augustine, right, Christina?
Yeah, Jacksonville, St. Augustine area. I loved it there.
And Al's been here in Tennessee forever. So.
That's right. I'm the only normal one.
So, Josh, your show, you've had a lot of really interesting guests. You kind of cover everything. It's not just paranormal, right? I mean, you touch on some of the UFO stuff, all kinds of past life. You've had a lot of interesting topics on. So your show kind of broad, right?
Well, there's still so much more to talk about. I have not had I haven't dived into or dove into like the witchcraft guests too much. I've had a variety of people on. Of course, Rhonda came on and covered some of the psychic stuff for me. I think, again, there's still so many topics I'd love to get. I've got probably a good 4 or 5 unique individuals that are wanting to come on the show, but trying to coordinate timing is always, one of those things, that the logistical things that you come across in this business, right? So But I do try to cover a variety of topics, because that's kind of one of the reasons why I named it the Everything Paranormal Show, because eventually I do want to cover a good, well-rounded take. And I like for people to come on there and to talk about their particular field. And I think having you guys, when I have you guys come on, your guys' unique take is that good combination of old and new technologies and methods. So I try to at least get some different people, different takes. I've had other investigators on that, some a little more technical, some a little more new. And then of course we talk about UFOs, aliens, whatever we can really get into. But there's so many topics of paranormal, or what people consider as paranormal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Bigfoot, we've talked about Bigfoot. So I definitely look forward to other people. And if there's other people watching this that are in some of those unique parts of paranormal, hit me up, and we'll look at maybe getting you on there.
So,
absolutely, that's great. That's great.
Josh, have you been watching the Skinwalker Ranch?
I've seen some of the stories. Certainly when you start getting into things associated with Indians,
Yeah.
There's a spiritual connection with Indians. They're very close, right? They're very spiritually close to things. So on the opposite of side of that, you get some very dark things that can be associated on the opposite side of the scale. And the Skinwalker Ranch is something I wouldn't mind going out and experiencing from the distance, because it's really hard to get on that property, right? You pretty much have to.
But the cool thing about, though, is they say that whole area around there, that entire part of Utah is, well, of course, it goes way back. I mean, it goes back to ancient energy, but they say that whole area is very active. So you could probably get a little sample without actually getting right on Skinwalker Ranch directly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, so Josh, what was the reason that you got into the paranormal? What was that thing that just, I'm interested in this, or was it, no, I don't believe in this, I want to disprove it? What was that driving force that got you into the paranormal?
Again, I had experiences when I was a child that intrigued me. And thanks to my grandparents, they didn't make it to where it was frightening. Then as I got more as a teenager, and I had there's only been a few times I've ever seen a ghost to me that was very solid. We're talking full-blown apparition. And I talk about it in my book, is the section, the chapter called Betty. And that really impacted me, to have a full apparition come up to me and interact with me, kind of tuck me in bed, so to speak. It was very, very chilling. And as a 15-year-old, it was like, what, and I think all the experiences I had, even up to being up into my early 30s, I want to say, maybe late 20s, I think it was late 20s. I still always thought, is that in my head? Are these things just something that maybe there's something a little off about me? I don't know. I just never, and it wasn't until my very first, I think it was the very first time that I got an EVP. And when I had that very first capture of evidence of what I felt was true evidence, not just pixelated pictures, not other things I had gotten in the past. When I got that first EVP in my own home, that I controlled that environment, for me, it was okay. I'm going to lean on the believer side, and now I want to go and do more. It was almost addictive right at that point. So,
absolutely. Hey, I want to real quick say hello to Taryn. Taryn is going to be on next week with Paranormal Brew. She's watching right now, and she did just make the comment. She said, I can't even watch that show or documentary Skinwalker. I'm too much of an animal lover. I'd be ruined. So,
yeah, it does have a little bit about, animal mutilations out there. So, but they don't focus on that. It focuses on a lot of different things. Yeah,
that's probably related to some of the animal sacrifice stuff that went along with some of the belief systems of those ancients, and they had a high respect for animals, but they also felt that different animals possessed certain qualities and powers, and the only way to harness those was to actually sacrifice those creatures. And then some of that is also related to what they conjure and bring forward for protection of lands, and or to attack others, or to curse others. So there's a lot of things with that.
Right. And think about the Christian religion in the Old Testament. The Old Covenant to God, there was a lot of sacrifice of animals to cleanse your sins. That's why they built the tabernacle. They had a whole thing in there about which animals to sacrifice for what and how many. That was the way our ancient Christians related to God, and it was something that even spread to the world even without Christianity. That was a way that a lot of cultures was
absolutely
appeasing God. So
Mayans even built their temples with human sacrifice places and animal sacrifices where they could literally throw people into fires and things.
Right.
So kind of crazy. So anybody else got another question, or do you want me to continue forward? What do you got, Al?
We know you've been to a lot of places and done a lot of investigations since you've been doing this, what'd you say, since early 2000s?
Yeah.
Tell us about your favorite, experience that you've had as, a paranormal investigator.
I think my favorite experience, because there's so many, that I think for me, when I think of favorite experience, I think of I think of things that stick with you. And I want to say one of my favorite experiences probably would have to say, if you're just specifically talking about when I was doing investigations, I would say that one of the first times we had our first case in the antique mall. And I think one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite experiences was because I actually got to witness for one of the first times a shadow person, right? To witness a dark shadow pacing back and forth. And you could like see, and like in the dark, we had lights off, and you could see in the dark, and there was other lights behind, and you could see it blocking out the light, and you literally could see it kind of peek around and look down the aisle. You could see it pace because you could still see in that particular booth because a lot of things were low level, so you could see across the other booths, and you could just see it pacing, and it was amazing to see that, and to even go back on some of the footage and to that we captured that. So that moment in that investigation, even though overall the investigation, and we've had other investigations that had probably even more paranormal activity, but that moment really stuck with me to this day.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I mean, we had this little same question when I was on the show with you, and we talked about this last week in our little Q&A session. It's hard. It's really hard to pick your favorite moment, because I have favorite moments from all the places that I've been, right. Even places that maybe they weren't very active, but there was something about the place that I really connected with, or an energy that I really loved about it that really resonated with me, that I just really found something I really liked about it. So it's kind of hard, right? It's hard to pinpoint that one experience that you go, man, that's the holy grail moment. I mean, there are some that obviously are better than others, but I think for me, it's a little harder to do that. So I can see why that's a difficult question. Well, what about you guys? You guys got a favorite moment you want to throw in?
I was going to get Rhonda to talk about the experience that her and I had at the Tipton Haynes that night, because that was my very first like visual piece of evidence that I'd gotten.
Okay.
And by the way, Josh is sitting in his background is the Tipton.
Is the Tipton Haynes? Yeah.
Yeah. Which experience, Al?
When we saw through the window.
In the window, yeah.
God. Yeah, the thing that drew Christine and Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was so proud, Al, that I was with you the first time you ever saw anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just standing there talking, and Al had his back to the window, and I'm like, I think I just saw something in the window, and Al turned around and was like, oh my God. It looked like a kid or something jumping up, trying to peep out the window.
Yeah. Well, there was a blue light behind it.
Yeah, but it was pitch black outside. But there was a blue light, like it was dusk outside. You know that blue hue you get, but it was pitch black. It was dark. I couldn't figure out where the light came from. Couldn't figure out where the person came from either, or whatever it was.
That was one of those portal experiences that we had talked about, Josh, when I was on the show. I think we talked about it, and that was one of those moments where we think that was related to that. Because
it's actually in that room he's got right there.
Yeah. It actually is.
That's where it took place. Yeah, that was a wild night.
Yep.
Yeah.
See, somehow I knew.
So Terry Lynn just had a comment. So I'm gonna put it up here, Josh, so you can read it because it's something that she said you may want to talk about that's funny.
Oh, geez. Oh, God. Okay, so, all right. So this is way back before we actually had a team. This was when we first decided, hey, we're going to run out and go do investigation stuff, right? We got some cameras with some infrared, back in the day with the cassettes, the little mini cassettes and stuff. They were like the digital, right? So we're like, oh, let's go run out and let's do something at night. So, of course, one of the first things we're going to do is a cemetery. So we go out there, it's dark, and we're going around these graves, and I'm walking around with the camera, and I think she might have had her recorder. And while we were out there, we're also looking for a specific grave marker and stuff, but we're walking around, and then all of a sudden we just get this guy just come right up on us, and it's like, hey, can I help you guys? And we're just like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like panicking. I just tossed the camera in the bush, and we're just like, yeah, we're here visiting. We work weird hours. We used to like come up with this story because we like started panicking, and we just happened to be standing in front of this grave, and I'm like, yeah, Tech Sergeant Michael was such a good guy. Because it said Tech Sergeant on the thing, and it, so it was just this whole thing, and of course he walks away, and we trying to find the camera in the bush, and so it was one of those moments that just stuck with us,
And then you look at the date, and he died in 1930.
Right.
He was such a good guy.
I know, but that's the stuff that you go through and you learn as you know what I mean, when you're doing the learning curve and you're going out there, and we didn't know, but it was just so funny that guy come up on us, and of course he ended up telling us that he was out taking care of things. He was one of the caretakers, but
yeah, and and too, that long ago, I mean, I know even in the time that I've been in this in 15 years or so, it's so much more accepted now than it was back then. 15, 20 years ago, before the TV shows, people would look at you like you were crazy if you went looking to hang out in cemeteries or talk to ghosts or any of those things.
Yep.
Which, while we're on that topic, since we're doing this kind of like a round table also. Sorry, I was catching up on comments real quick. I apologize. But why don't we talk about investigating in graveyards, what everybody's thoughts is on that? Because personally, for me, I've evolved a lot in my journey, and I don't like to go to graveyards now. I will if it relates to the case, if it's a family plot, or there's something that we need for a reason, or for historical research in the daytime, to look at grave sites, try and make connections that way. But actually going and investigating cemeteries, for me, I don't like the energy there, because this is my thoughts, and then I'm curious to see what you guys think. But if I were to pass away tomorrow, I'm not going to go hang out at the cemetery where my family is sad, right? If I can come back and see them, if that is even possible, I'm going to want to see them where they're happy, where I was happy with them, not at a cemetery. So it makes me wonder what lurks at cemeteries. Is it something that's just looking to prey on people that are in a weakened state? Whoever wants to take it from there.
I'll second that, Matt. I'm not a big fan of investigating in a cemetery. I think the energy that manifests there is brokenhearted, and it's a place of pain for so many people. I know families, you'll want to go to the graveside of a loved one, and that may be where they get closure. But much like you, if I have the ability, that's not where I'm going to stay. My body may be physically there, but my spirit's going to want to be somewhere else, my home or with my loved ones. I'm just not a big fan of the cemeteries. I think for me, it's a place of respect and a place of mourning and grief, but I'm just not into that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that any human spirits will be there. So you're either wasting your time, or if you do get something, it's not good, I'm sure. Because I think your theory is right, that it's something lurking, wanting to prey on weak people who are really sorrowful and in a really bad place. My grandmother actually lived in a church. It had been converted into a small house when she was first married, and there was a graveyard in the yard. So it was right next to the church, and she told us all kinds of terrible things that had happened, and she didn't last there long at all. She left. As soon as they could leave, they left.
Al, what's your thoughts on them?
I have never investigated in a cemetery. I tried to get you guys to go to one time, but nobody was having it. So.
Hell's Gate Cemetery.
No, no, ain't happening, Al.
It's a place known for satanic worship. I'm out.
Yeah. Now, I won't say back in high school we didn't maybe mess with a Ouija board in a cemetery, but I've never, since I've been involved in, paranormal investigating, have ever done a cemetery. And I'm like Christina. I don't think it's necessarily a place that you should investigate. Maybe, unless something leads you there that you need to do. But.
I think if it relates to the case, sometimes, and we have had to do that. I mean, I think maybe before you joined Al, there was a couple cases we had that the family cemetery played a role in the activity that was going on there. There was a reason. It was more, I personally think it was related to something that had been buried in place there. So it was more related to the artifact, but the cemetery ended up being part of that history and that story, and the significance of what was there. Josh, thoughts? What's your thoughts on cemeteries? I mean, and I did it. I started out doing cemeteries. I'm going to say that for the record. I have done plenty of cemeteries.
That's where we all go, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
So here's my take, and I think that one is I agree with the fact that yes, there's got to be a respect issue. By all means, there has to be a respect issue because again, it is a place that people are laying their loved ones to rest. I think it also depends on the cemetery. There are some cemeteries that are dedicated to tragedies that have happened, ships that have wrecked and things like that. Coal mine incidences, things like that. There is some areas that may need a little bit of investigation for some historical significance.
Certainly.
Battlefield cemeteries that were resurrected on the spot. I think some of that can be okay depending on what you're doing. If you're going to some of these just modern cemeteries where loved ones are laid to rest, I mean, really, what's the purpose? What are you trying to achieve? And I think that's something you have to ask yourself as an investigator is, what are you trying to achieve when you go to this location? So if it's historical and you're there for a specific reason, then again, and I think if you do choose to do that, you have to make sure you walk that fine line between respect. You don't want to show maybe a lot of names, things like that. So again, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but I think that depending on why you're going and what you're doing, it can be okay. And especially the respect issue has to be there.
Absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right. And sometimes it is relevant to the case, and that's what we have found. And I guess what I was saying is I think where people can get into trouble with that is you first start, you're inexperienced, you don't understand the dangers that truly are associated with what we do. Then you take something like a Ouija board that you don't understand how to properly open and close, Al James, and you then accidentally get a hold of something that maybe you didn't want to. And I think that, that's where being an experienced investigator. So I don't want anybody to watch this and go, oh, you should never do cemeteries. It's not all what I'm saying. I was just saying why I personally choose not to go to cemeteries. There's so many other sites that now that we've gotten the experience and we have the years and years of those experiences and research, to where now we can go to a lot of other places, and we don't have to go to locations like that. For some people, that may be the only place they can go, but you've got to be very careful like you do anywhere else. And I guess I should point out, I'm absolutely a hypocrite because I am sitting in a cemetery as we do this show. So there is that.
That's what he chose as his background.
And then we got into it. See, you never know where a live show is going to go, right? You never know what you're talking about.
Well, and sometimes it's opportunity. Sometimes it depends on what comes to you. Sometimes there's historical societies or different people that come to you and say, "Hey, listen, could you go and check this out for us?
Sure.
We would like to hear your thoughts." Things like so. Sometimes it might just be opportunities versus a level thing too.
Yes.
Because you just never know what's going to come through your email or to your door.
Absolutely. And again, I'm definitely not saying that people should never do cemeteries. It's just, it's a lot more to this. And that's what we always talk about, is there's a lot more to, it's not just about going out and having experiences. I mean, that's where we all start, but hopefully as you get more serious and as you evolve as an investigator and a researcher, hopefully you've moved past that and you're really trying to get measurable data and actually contribute to, what the paranormal community is. But I was going to add one other thing. We brought up one other topic that I think is a great topic. It's something I'm fascinated about. I don't have an answer to, obviously, and I don't think anybody on this panel does, and I really don't know anybody in the paranormal that can answer it for sure. But you mentioned it as one of your favorite experiences, is shadow people. That is something that I think they fall in more than one category. I mean, for me, I've seen them where they don't seem to really care. They're intelligent. They're not residual because of their behaviors. It's not repetitious. They don't seem fazed by us. And then I've seen other ones that seem extremely curious about us and often have a human form to them. We've had that happen numerous times. We have seen shadow figures on Rhonda and I have encountered them together over the last few years, not only on the team since she joined the team, but working together before that. So I think they're a neat thing, and I think there's something worth talking a little bit about since they came up tonight.
Yeah.
Whoever wants to start off on shadow people.
Well, I think, I've always been in the opinion of, first of all, of course, everybody's got all kinds of beliefs. But just like there's a variety of people, there's going to be a variety of ghosts. Also, though, it depends on what you feel like some of the history. I myself am a big fan of the ancient times and ancient scriptures that talk about giants. They talk about like the Nephilim, right?
Right.
And they talk about the hybrid, okay, the creatures, and you can even look in your Greek mythology, your centaurs, minotaurs, and when these creatures were killed or fallen, their spirits were to be bound to earth for eternity. And some of them, they didn't have human mothers. Some of them were a product of fallen angels and animals and things like that. That's why I do truly believe some of these spirits that we experience that have animalistic behaviors come from those particular backgrounds. And that's why they, because sometimes you'll come across those spirits in your investigations that they just don't act like humans. They don't seem to have these particular human-like characteristics or movements or the way they act. So it always boggles your mind, like, well, I don't understand that. So to me, the way I feel like I make sense of it by thinking of it as that those particular spirits are from those times when they were hybrid creatures and some of these animalistic type behaviors. So that's kind of my explanation of why you see these different particular spirits.
And it's also interesting that actually, not only in the Christian faith, but that crosses multiple belief systems.
Right.
Because ancient, Native Americans and the Pueblo people, and going even further back to the earliest of recorded North American natives.
Celtic history.
Celtics, even, yes, all over the world, they have that same belief of these hybrid type existing things that were related to gods and gods mating with humans and those being byproducts of that. So it's kind of fascinating how that kind of spans the whole globe. And I just think it's really interesting, though, that the shadow people in particular fascinate me. And it's not like we see them, obviously, on every investigation, because you don't. But I have seen them a handful of times, and the times that I've encountered them, it's always a fascinating thing, because it just, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if it's partial manifestation, like a spirit is trying to manifest and it's not a full manifestation. But then there's other times they almost feel elemental. So Rhonda might want to talk a little bit more about that. I mean, you've had that. I know we've had that experience together where we're seeing something and we both feel like it's not human, but it doesn't feel evil. It feels almost indifferent.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Back to the human characteristics, kind of like, or the form of the shadow people. I almost wonder, are they maybe multi-dimensional people? Are they from another dimension and we're accidentally crossing over at times? And maybe that's why they're seem interested or confused, or maybe they're ghost hunting on their side and we're the ghosts. I don't know. Something
That's
to
an
that.
interesting thought. Never really looked at it that way.
What was the movie, The Sixth Sense? That was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or was it The Sixth Sense or the one with Nicole Kidman in it?
Nicole
The
Kidman.
others.
Oh,
Yeah, the others.
The
That's
Others.
it. Where they were actually the ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, the elementals, though, I think that's different from what I think shadow people are. But they're also, because I think I'm positive that's what we have at the Nickerson's Need House when we first encountered it. It was shadowy, but it wasn't humanoid looking. It was
Right.
almost like a gargoyle or something. And the first time that we encountered it, it was, we were afraid of it because it gave off that emotion, you know, and it got huge in the room. But then Nikita saw it a second time, and it was during the day, and she wasn't all hyped up with an investigation, so she was calm, and she had her dog with her, so she's like, she said, Mom, I just saw that thing upstairs again. I'm like, what? Because I'm about ready to freak out. And she's like, yeah, this time it was curious. I didn't feel like it was that I should be afraid. I didn't feel fearful. I didn't feel like it was anything negative. It was curious. And then when we got to looking and doing some research, it all reflects back the emotions that you're giving off. So she was curious, so it was curious. But there, I noticed that if people come into the house that aren't respectful of spirits or the house or me, this thing comes out and shows itself in a negative manner.
So more of a protector.
The protector of the property. I believe that the Native Americans, because they had the trail there on number 11 in front of the house, I think they have brought or conjured up an elemental to protect the land. And they left. The house was built there. It's still protected. So
and that was significant for people that don't know geographically where the Nickerson's Need is. It's in Glade Springs, Virginia, and it's off the interstate. But the main road that it sits, you go one block off the interstate, and that main road. And what road is that right in front of that, Rhonda? You said a
Route
second
11.
ago. That Route 11 was actually a significant trade route for the Indians. That was a significant path that they traveled through there, is well documented. Another thing that's very interesting about the Nickerson's Need, it is actually very, very close to ley lines as well.
It also has a, tell me, what's the foundation?
Limestone.
Limestone, I couldn't bring it up.
Limestone,
It has a limestone foundation. And there's a water source at the foot of the hill. There's a small spring house, so there's underground water. And there's crossroads there. And then on the other side, just down the road, is the cemetery where the Sneeds and the Masons, who were owners, and the Kincannon's original owners, are all buried there. And also some of my family members are buried there.
All elements for a perfect colony.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's been our experience. And I don't know, I'd be curious to see if Josh has a similar thought on this. But in our experience, where we've encountered portals and elemental type energies, not saying elemental hauntings, elemental energies.
Right.
Those are common factors for us. Ley lines, trade routes, Native Americans, all those things kind of come together and seem to be when we experience those things. So I think there's a connection between some of those particular things and your portals and some of those other kind of vortexes, next level things that you don't encounter in every haunting.
Can I interject one thing?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, and I hadn't thought of this before just now, I wonder if all those elements, if that is why the Native Americans brought the elemental to that particular spot. Was that a sacred spot because it had so many elements there together? The line, you know, because there's limestone on the property. Of course, the house wasn't there at the time, but the water source would have been, the ley lines. I don't
Significant trade route that was significantly important to them. You know, and then you factor in the other things that add to the Nickerson-Sneed's haunting. And then I know Josh was getting ready to speak, and I just wanted to tack on to what you said around that. But, you know, then you factor in it was Kincannon Fort. So there's, you know, that history there. It was used as a makeshift morgue during the Battle of Saltville. So there's another layer to that. So, I mean, you just keep adding these layers, and it's like an onion, right? I mean, you peel it back, and you get deeper and deeper into what's causing the activity there. But Josh, did you want to weigh in on that? I saw you getting ready to talk there.
Well, I guess I would say a couple of things. One, real quick, is going back to the shadow figures before we get into this next subject here real quick. One thing I wanted to add on that too is over the years, it seems as if there seems to be almost 2 to 3 distinguishable types of shadow figures. So one is very similar to what we experience commonly, which is what Rhonda and yourself and we're all talking about, almost the very inquisitive type of dark figures, the ones that seem to be peeking around corners a lot, almost maybe protective, like maybe they are hanging around overseeing that particular property or something, or that particular area. Maybe some pacing, again, peeking around corners. And then also when you witness a lot of cases as well, you tend to get a whole other class of what people describe as dark shadows or shadow figures that are associated with sleep paralysis as well.
Yes.
Things that they find that are kind of hanging over their bed, suffocation style. You get a lot of with dark shadows associated with pressures on the chest or throat, as if they're almost being choked or suffocated or sat on. So there is sort of another class of shadow figures that have a little bit of a dark element to them, no pun intended. But then there's that other class that seems to be a little more distinguished, and I don't know if they are separate, or again, I don't know if they're just kind of hanging around being inquisitive, waiting for the right opportunities to be negative. I don't know, but it does seem to be a lot of cases associated with dark shadows and shadow figure people, basically shadow people that are associated with sleep paralysis, that suffocation, chest, neck pressures, things like that.
Almost a more threatening kind of feeling too. People will talk of being afraid when they see these, and some of that is people not that they're afraid of paranormal experiences.
But
anyway,
that's what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, absolutely. So there's multiple. That's why I think shadow. I mean, we could actually do a whole topic tonight. I mean, we could spend the whole night really, bringing different theories to the table on shadow people, because it's one of those very diverse things.
Right.
It's just always fascinated me. It's one of the things since my personal journey in this that I every time I encounter them, whether it's sometimes you feel like I feel pretty confident that that's a human spirit, and I'm just only seeing it in that shadowy form. That's not the ones I'm talking about, and I want to make that distinction. I'm talking about what you're talking about, Josh. The ones that seem to be these separate beings that are kind of inquisitive, but they just feel different. I don't know how else to explain it, other than their presence feels different. Their energies feel different to me.
Right. Now, as far as what we're talking about, as we get into Indians and elementals and stuff too, as well as and these energy centers, is I do believe that yes, there's probably an energy map. Whether we can physically track it out or not, or just something we're just naturally drawn to, because I do believe that we are connected all through energy, the Schumann resonance, all these things that our alpha waves, all these frequencies that are on the same wavelengths at times. So if you really look back at even some of the earliest people, let's say even the Native Americans, right? They're out there. Where are they going to set up camp? They're going to, of course, go to these places that maybe are these natural energy centers where not only wildlife, running water, some of these great stones and foundations for things. So these epicenters of energies that where life is just drawn to, and of course, Native Americans live off the earth. They have that connection. So where are they going to set up camp? They're going to probably set up camp at these places where they have these amazing elements and have elemental energies. So I think, and then of course down the road as we came along and things like that, again, cities, all these places evolved to some of these things. So that's just kind of my take on where we see it. And it seems to be, and until we can actually start tracking this stuff to where we start knowing a lot more data, we really won't be able to say for sure. But Matt, I think you're on the right track for saying, hey, we just seem to keep finding some of these common factors every time we do these cases. So certainly if we can track all of that, we could get people to somehow universally track that.
You talk about a game changer.
Right. So that's my take.
Absolutely. I mean, that would definitely be Christina or Rhonda. I heard somebody start to say something.
Rhonda.
I was wondering, okay, I wanted to mention the sleep paralysis. Because as a spiritualist, the sleep paralysis, for us, we believe that it is someone's astral projecting in their sleep. And as they're coming back into their bodies, they will hit these lower levels of the astral plane. And in those lower levels, you see things that are not, well, that appear scary to you. They're things you're not used to. They're different beings. And so that is the old hag syndrome, the thing on your chest. It is beings from a lower vibration as you're coming through that astral plane.
So getting down on those theta level, that lower level vibration. So instead of like when you meditate, coming higher on a higher plane, you're at a lower plane, and then the theta, what they call theta waves, I believe, they're lower vibrations. Right. The more negative side of the energy cone. Would that be right, Rhonda?
Yes.
Interesting.
It's very interesting. I don't astral project, so I just with a lot. I think there's a lot of people that don't realize it sometimes, and they may enter into that astral projection. I think some of these out-of-body experiences, I think there are some of these people, what people perceive as dreams sometimes, I think is actually a little more astral projection than they realize.
Absolutely.
So, and some of these people that experience sleep paralysis may not fully realize what truly is going on. They just think it may be a condition.
Oh yeah, they have no idea they're astral projecting. They don't have a clue.
And when Al takes his Ambien and doesn't go to bed, he astral projects all over the place. You have to really watch Al off with Ambien and stay in a hotel with him. Now, I just want to inject a little joke.
I don't Amazon shop when I'm on Ambien. All my electronics are put away.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, okay.
Nah, I just wanted to make a little joke at Al there, but no, I think that's an interesting point. And I know we've talked a lot about this, Rhonda and Christina and I have for sure, about people having gifts, whether they realize it or not. And I know, Rhonda, you're a believer that everybody has gifts. Not everybody has learned how to harness them yet or tap into them yet. So this is kind of goes along too with when we talk about, the poltergeist type stuff. It's sometimes those raw emotions or those type of psychic experiences are happening, even though the person is completely unaware of what part of the amazing computer of the human brain that they've tapped into that's allowing them to have this experience.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's hit another question. Dream location, Josh. Where would it be?
Okay, this will there's a little story to this. First of all, I think dream locations in general would be probably Europe, because there's so many places in Europe, right?
Yeah.
But I gotta say, for me personally, This is going to go all the way back. But when I was young, there was an image, and maybe I should have sent it to you, Matt. I don't know, but there's an image. It's a classic image. It's called the Spectre of Newby Church, and it's, if you've ever seen the photo, it's a picture of an altar. A priest was taking a picture of his altar. It's black and white, and there's this phantom standing on the stairs off to the right. And that image of that phantom, and photograph experts and all that over the years, they've analyzed the original, the negatives and all that, and they say it's legit. But this phantom had always haunted me as a kid. It was very, very haunting. So I think if I got over to Europe, I think for sure I'd want to go to North Yorkshire in England, and actually go to the Church of Christ, the Consular, and actually go to the grounds, that Newby Hall grounds, and visit that just for personal reasons, because that image has haunted me as a kid. I think I would love to go there and investigate that church again, just as from that image alone.
Wow.
That impacted me as a child. So,
speaking of photos, I'm still trying to find that one that we talked about on your show, Josh, from the experience at the Tipton Haynes.
I'm going to keep hearing that for the next 5 years.
I know. I've really.
Hey, speaking of that photo,
there I am. I'm going to find it because I want you to
see put reminders. It's like, I'm putting a reminder right now.
But I still don't know where it's at.
Reminders of your reminders.
You could just randomly text me and say, hey, what about that picture? No,
Right.
My mom is going to try to find it. I've checked in some of our stuff. I've not found it yet, but I will find it. Because
Are you talking about the one with your aunt looking
yes.
in the car? Oh, okay.
Yes. That he connected with it to Tipton Haynes, that shared experience that we had, that was really cool, because to me it was very validating. And, that's all we love, is when we have those validating moments. And I think when Josh sees that picture, he will be blown away by
Probably. It. Because, like, I agree with Rhonda. I think that we all have a certain amount of gift, whether you develop it or not, or push it away, or whatever your choice is. Because I know the more active I do, the more I'm active, the more investigations I do. When I'm actively doing things, I'm a lot more sensitive. My wife's even higher sensitivity than me. She's developed it even more over the years. And I noticed, like, when I got away from like field investigations, that sort of toned down. I wasn't able to be as sensitive as I was. But the more I'm getting back to being out in the field and things like that, I'm starting to be more sensitive on things. But even like something like that, when I saw that image, again, I don't have a lot of, I don't really practice a lot of what am I looking at? The not psychic, clairvoyancy and stuff. I really don't practice a lot of clairvoyant techniques.
You don't try to,
Right.
focus in on that and meditate to try and strengthen the visual.
I just don't. But in that particular night, that was just what came to me. So I think that was a spirit. I think that was something paranormal that used my energies in my mind, to give me that image.
Matt,
Terry sent the comment, said she sent it to me.
Matt, don't you have a funny story about opening up and a certain stone at Brushy Mountain in your pocket?
Yes, I do. So the first time we went to Brushy Mountain, I was trying to open up more, and Rhonda had been helping me and working on me to do that. So because I am naturally offensive, and I've accepted that. But through working with Rhonda, she's really helped me to really expand that. So she said, well, one thing you can do is, get you some amethyst, and I'll bring you some, and you can put a piece under your pillow. That helps you to get that energy, or by your bedside. That amethyst is a great way, or wear it on your person. It's a great way to open up. So she gives me these stones and wants me to pick one. She says, here, just pick one, keep whatever you want, but pick the one that speaks to you. And I'm a believer of that. And I think, Josh, you're into crystals a bit. They speak to you, right? I mean, you feel it. You know when you've got the rock.
Yep.
This is the one that spoke to me, and I made it into a necklace, But yeah.
I think everybody here is probably going to start, like whipping out their stones.
I know, we're starting to grab our crystals, yeah.
Because it's who we are, right? But so she gives me these stones, and what do I do with them? Did I put them in the truck where they should have been? Oh no. I throw them in my pocket and then go into like one of the most haunted places in the world. And it was like, just covering yourself in, ghost bait, come get me. Because it was like I was open. The fear opens you up too, right?
Right.
So, but that, just an interesting little thing. But
and a quick note on those stones for people too is that, again, do your research and on the different stones and what they can do, and then also it's also on how you program your stones as well. And this is something you definitely want to research is how to program your stone, like how to cleanse it when you first get it, how to program it. So it's important for people that are watching, if they want to go out and get stones, realize that it may not just be a magnet instantly, who knows, but you want to research and you want to make sure you program it for what you need. And like mine helps me protect, and there's a few things I have for this.
Well, here's an idea that we could do. Christina, we could probably reach out to our friends at Dilly's and see if they're stone experts. They're really into that. See if they want to come on our show and maybe Josh's show and talk stones a bit. They're a local.
I'd be happy to reach out to Dagny.
They're great people. I think that she would maybe be interested in coming on and talking to both of our shows.
Right, and I think
my latest new pretty from there.
Nice.
I saw them on Instagram.
Yeah, they're gorgeous. Great energy.
Right, and it's good for people too that if they want to protect certain things, looking into certain particular stones like jet or shungite, things like that, protection stones. If you're having and you want to protect maybe even children's rooms, things like that. There's a lot you could really get into, and I think it's really cool. And I think maybe trying to get somebody on, because I'm no expert, but getting somebody on that can talk about those things and say, hey, look, and maybe even some of the stigma of can Christians use these? Who can all use these, or is that going to negate your beliefs on something or whatever? I think that's important too for people to understand.
Well, that's personal choice stuff. It's important too. You got to decide it. And for me, and I'm no expert in stones, but for me, I think it's what you feel comfortable with. If you don't feel something is right, it's not right for you, whether that's because of religious beliefs or if it's just because of, what your intuition is. I'm a big believer in intuition and that inner voice. If it's telling you no, there's a reason it's telling you no. And I think that that's something that people should pay attention to.
That could be ignorance telling you no. Education is power.
That is true too. Yes, that is a good point. So we got a few more minutes. I'd like to hit one more question with you before we get ready to wrap up this hour and move into the next hour. But here we go. So if, Josh, you could pick your ghost outfit, so like you're going to come back and you're going to be a ghost and you're going to haunt wherever you want to haunt, what is your ghost outfit?
My ghost outfit, it's going to allow me to I'm going to look like a dark shadow, all right, when I come back, because I wear black all the time now, like really. And so I would have to say it's probably just going to be like a black t-shirt, shorts. So you might see like my calves and my face and my arms. That's about it. That's all you're going to see me as a ghost pretty much. So
no, see, here's what I'm doing. I'm getting a black cloak and a skull mask and a sickle. Right. I'm going to let everybody think I am literally the Grim Reaper everywhere I go.
See, my luck is I'm going to dye in my SpongeBob pajamas. So,
So we talked about that on our last show about, is that it? Is that your ghost outfit? I mean, if you check out right now, is that it? Is that your ghost outfit? I don't know. Maybe.
Oh gosh, if so, I'm going to have to start getting out of my day pajamas.
Put your night pajamas on during this quarantine?
Yeah.
All right, so how about you guys? What's your old ghost outfit?
If I'm going to come back and haunt you all, I'm going to be naked, so you really get scared.
That would be terrifying.
That's me. I'm going to be naked. So I'll really scare you.
That's what we need to capture on a camera, a ghost butt.
No, I mean, is it going to depend on what you die in? I mean, is that going to be your ghost outfit, or can you choose from a ghost wardrobe, or
I posed the question to Josh as, what would it be if you could pick your ghost
if
outfit?
you could pick it out of your ghost wardrobe, what would it be?
If you could pick it.
Yes.
Yeah, like that's why I said most likely it's
Right.
going to be t-shirt, shorts, or something, because that's pretty much what I always wear. So I don't
Just black.
I couldn't see myself putting on something fancy because people wouldn't recognize. They'd be like, "Who's that in the tuxedo?" That wouldn't be me. So.
That's somebody pretending to be Josh. See, yeah, right.
Here's my thing. I think it depends on who you're going to be haunting. Because if I'm haunting you, I'm going to be naked. If I'm haunting Christina, I'm having a clown mask on.
You're still going to pay for that, mister.
What I mean?
Answer something right there. It's the tricksters are Al. It's people like Al that have come back.
I mean,
that's what the trickster is.
You know, I'm gonna make the best of it. You know. So.
All right, Rhonda, what's your ghost outfit?
I've never thought of this before. I am just totally stumped. I don't know. I have no idea. I guess I should think on that though, shouldn't I?
Right. Well, I mean, where's all the ghosts right now with the dead gangsters with the flannel and the head bandana and the pants sagging down below their butts? I haven't seen those yet, but I mean, where's the period clothing for our periods? You know.
And here's another thing. Does it matter if you die like horribly or peacefully? Because a lot of people say, "Well, I've seen a Civil War soldier." And he's wearing Civil War.
But have you? I mean, I know I haven't, but in the handful of manifestation type things I've seen, and it's very few. I had the one Holy Grail moment that started me on this journey, and I've had one since then that was a pretty cool visual, and that was at Hale's Bar. I'm not talking about shadow people. I'm talking about the true apparition type thing. But I haven't heard a lot of stories, not me personally, haven't heard a lot of stories of grotesquely mutilated looking apparitions. Have you?
Right.
I mean, like even battlefield soldiers typically don't appear like, mutilated that I've ever heard of any credible sources.
Have you ever heard any of them being naked?
You know what? No.
There you go.
My luck, like I said, you'll listen to the EVPs and be like, "Hey, I hear footsteps in corduroy. Is that corduroy?"
With throwback
bell-bottom ghosts,
boots and corduroy, and a button-down flower shirt.
Christina,
that's what my husband would wear.
Before we wrap this segment, what's your ghost outfit, Christina?
I'm probably going to go with some sort of a robe. There'll definitely be no underwire involved. I'm going to go for comfort.
And you know what? You should be comfortable since it is for eternity. I just think that's probably a great idea. Al may be onto something. Run around. I don't know.
About 40 years
anyways,
from now,
everybody, Josh Morris was our guest tonight. I'm sorry, what did you say?
40, 50 years from now, people's going to see a bunch of naked ghosts and they'll know who it is.
Absolutely. Mr. Moon said, my daughter just said, you come back in whatever you would be recognized in, like she did at 18 months, but she comes to me as 8 years old in a T-shirt and jeans.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So that's an interesting point. I know we were kind of making light of that, but that's a very interesting point. But before we get into the next hour, I just wanted to say Josh is going to stick around with us. He's going to talk to us about some other stuff, some of the stuff that we're going to get into the next hour. He says he's going to hang with us. But I did want to plug his book. If you have not had a chance, you probably want to go out and get this. Available on Amazon. Is that right? Yep. Is that on Amazon?
I had to make sure. Yes, it's available on Amazon. Absolutely. So, and I think I even lowered the price recently a little bit for a while. So, yeah, definitely check it out. And as far as the book goes, real quick, it's very personal to me because it is, of course, my first and only book. But the first third of the book really is about my childhood up to recent times, and then a lot of theory after that. So, just theory based on over the years. As you guys know, you gather a lot of theory based on your experience over the years. And I'm kind of down the middle. In other words, I look at all these different cases, and there's outliers, and when you just get these common themes among different things, I tend to look at that's probably the truth. The truth usually lies somewhere in the middle. So it's a book based on a lot of that and putting it all together. So
it's definitely a good read. It's called My Paranormal, and once again, you can get that on Amazon.com. Highly recommend it. Also, don't forget, it's been scrolling along the bottom, but please like and share this, as well as subscribe to our YouTube. But please show Josh some love and check out the Everything Paranormal Show. He has it on YouTube. And what night and time is it typically, Josh?
it's usually every Thursday, and lately we've been trying to do a new 9 p.m. slot, but it's been 10 p.m. So just pay attention. It'll be usually anywhere from 9 to 11. So,
As somebody that's been on your show a few times, Josh, I do think earlier would be good for me because I
Right.
don't. It's unless I'm out investigating, I'm usually in bed by 11.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
Just saying. I'm just saying.
Well,
I'm trying to do it before Al's Ambien kicks in.
there you go. and here's the thing. Next week we're going to have to be on Thursday because we work Friday. So we'll be on 7 to 9, and then you can tune in to Josh after that from
Back to back, baby.
back to back.
There you go. You can fill your whole night with us weirdos talking about weird stuff. All right, so it is time for us to get into our second segment, and we like to start that off. This is only our second show, but we will be starting that off with the Wait What segment. So stand by for one. All right, Josh is still with us. Al, so it's time for Wait What. So what do you got for us tonight on the Wait What segment?
Well,
Oh
tonight
my God, wait a minute. Wanda disappeared. Did you see that? Vanishing.
right before our eyes, she
Yes,
just
magic
disappeared.
included in tonight's show.
She must have thought that was like an intermission or something.
There she is.
Magic.
What you got for us, Al?
So, we're going to talk a little bit about the Ourang Medan ghost ship. It's a chilling story, as fanciful as Blackbeard's headless body supposedly swimming around the ship before sinking beneath the depths. So it got my attention. So I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to tell about it because I don't think anybody wants story time with Al tonight. So in 1947, a Dutch ship called the Ourang Medan was sailing between Sumatra and Malaysia, right? That's right, isn't it, Matt?
Straight of Malacca.
Strait of Malacca, and some Dutch and American, British bases got a SOS message saying the captain and all the crew are dead, lying in the chart room and on the deck. And then there was some other transmissions that come through, and then the last one that didn't really make sense, and then the last one was I die. And so there was a ship out there that got the SOS message. It was called this
Silver Star.
Silver Star. I knew it was something silver.
Yep.
And they went to the boat and they tried to make contact with the crew. Of course, nobody answered. So they sent a search party onto the boat, and they basically found everybody dead, like in prone positions with their hands in the air and
Their
terrified
faces in agony.
terrified faces. And they even found a dog that was kind of in the same position.
Growling, kind of snarling position.
Right. And they actually found the telegraph operator with his hands still on the keyboard with the same look on his face. So they searched the whole ship. They didn't find anybody alive, or at that time any cause for the mysterious deaths. They had no trauma to the bodies. They showed no signs of being attacked by pirates or something. So what they did was they tied their ship to the boat and was going to tow it in, and a mysterious fire broke out on the ship, and before they got it back, they had to cut the line, and the ship actually blew up and sank. So nobody really knows what happened to the boat to cause everybody to die. There's a lot of theories out there.
So here's the kicker, though. A couple things I found interesting about it is there was no record of a ship actually named the SS Ourang Medan. There's no record of it. So that's one problem with it being possibly folklore or urban legend, is the simple fact. Sorry, Rhonda, I put that up so people could see.
No, I leaned forward and cut my whole head off. So
I'll get it off there in just a second.
You're good.
But so what's interesting is there's no record of this ship, right? So your first thing is the skeptics right away will dismiss that and say, oh, well, of course not. It doesn't exist. There's no ship in that name. But there's two big problems with that. The first is it was in 1952, the United States Coast Guard released an official report that had interviews from the Silver Star crew about this experience and about what they saw and what happened when they went on deck. Some of those reports actually talked about getting instrument measurements because they felt this strange temperature change. It was almost 100 degrees outside on this day because it was a summer day, and there was measurements taken down. I don't know how documented this was, but it's in this U.S. Coast Guard report that is available if you want to dig it out. And numerous sources have reported on the same thing, that it felt considerably cooler, like some 40, 50 degrees cooler down in the bottom of the ship as they went further down into the ship. So there's some reasons why there may not have been a name actually registered for that vessel. And there's a little more to that in just a second. But what else did you find about that, Al, while I get my
according to Lloyd's shipping registers, there was no boat called the Ourang Medan, but there might have been a really good reason for that. And if you want to, I think you were going to hit on that.
Yeah. So this is happening in 1947, right? Around that. There's some conflicting reports. Some say 43, some say 47, 48, but 48. Most of the reports are 47 and 48. The Silver Star's accounts all are in 1947. It is the summer of 1947 for their accounts for this particular thing. But you got to remember, this is post-World War II. And historically, we know that Nazi Germany was working with the Japanese to develop chemical and bioweapons. That is a known fact. So there is some speculation, and some of the rumors that go with this is that they were illegally taking stuff out through those straits. That what they had in their hull was two chemicals. One account said they had potassium cyanide and nitroglycerin stored in the cargo hold of the ship. So that would have been interesting because the cyanide, if the seawater corroded the cyanide could have very easily leached out, and that toxic gas would have killed everybody. The only problem with that is when you suffer from cyanide poisoning, it's not agonizing. It's not an agonizing death. So it wouldn't have left people with agonizing looks on their faces, nor does it cause your body to lock out. So some others suggested maybe it was a carbon monoxide type leak. The problem with that is carbon monoxide just typically makes you sleepy and makes you kind of go to sleep, right? So that doesn't make sense either. But what does make sense is a nerve agent, a toxic nerve agent called tabin. It was readily being made by the Japanese, and it's very possible that was being smuggled in that ship's cargo bay. And then that's what was released. The thing about tabin, or GA gas, is it's a neurotoxin, and it does block the receptors in the brain that cause muscle constriction. So wherever they stopped in agony would have been where they were frozen, literally because of that chemical reaction, the receptors being blocked. I only happen to know that from my day job of being a fireman and a hazmat guy. I'm a hazmat specialist, so I'm kind of into some of those type of things. So that to me makes the most sense, that they were illegally hauling this stuff and smuggling this stuff. So if they were and it wasn't properly stored, would they have registered the ship under that name? No. They probably would have registered under something else and hastily changed it while they were out, or it was never registered under that name to begin with. And that would make a lot of sense. And the nitroglycerin being on board could also account for the second mystery of the explosion, because whatever made the release that potentially killed them could have also degraded and caused degradation and detonation of the nitroglycerin, resulting in the explosion. So is it paranormal? Probably not.
Right. So my question is, would that have overcome them so quickly that they couldn't get up to the top to get fresh air?
The Tabin?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very volatile compound, but it has a very short persistency. That's another problem with the cyanide theory, because those people off the Silver Star would have likely encountered pockets of cyanide still trapped in the bay, down in the cargo holds. You wouldn't with Tabin, because Tabin is a short persistent agent. It wouldn't last long. It's not like VX gas that you can spray and literally last for weeks.
Well, you know what I found interesting reading this story as something that's happened more recently, and do you guys remember what happened about 5 years ago in Malaysia?
Yeah, the airliner that disappeared.
The airliner,
yeah,
that just disappeared out of the.
It disappeared.
Yeah,
and they still haven't found it.
Nope.
So, are you offering a potential another Bermuda Triangle scenario?
I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, it's happened in roughly the same area. So.
You never know. Here's another interesting thing. There's been 30 ships that have disappeared in 100 years in the Strait of Malacca. Now, that could also be through the piracy, because pirates have, for all along, have been very active in that. A third of the world's shipping vessels travel through there. I found that out researching this little topic. But it's interesting because people have offered UFO theories. People have offered paranormal theories because of the agony the people are in, the temperature changes. There's all these different theories that circulate about the ship. But I think what is really cool is, here it is all these years later, 60 years later, give or take, we're still talking about it, and it's still circulating. In fact, my daughter the other day found a little video that she sent me that's about this story. So it's one of the greatest maritime mysteries. What do you guys think?
I definitely think it's interesting.
I did a little bit of research on it, and I subscribe to the chemical theory. I mean, it's the one that just makes most sense. It's the most plausible. Why would they register the vessel if? I mean, you got to look at the time frame, so that makes sense. It's the cryptic help us messages, the SOS and the I die and all of that. That just adds the creep factor to it and makes it more interesting. But if people were struggling and having a hard time breathing and freezing and dying in agony, you're just going to reach out to whatever method of help you can think of at the moment. But that's anytime it's anything paranormal outside the norm, I always look for the most plausible, reasonable explanation. And to me, the chemical theory makes sense.
Absolutely. And that is exactly why I think segments like this are fun, is because you get to talk about something that we talk about a lot. And I know that, Josh, I've heard you talk about this, and I know our team talks about this a lot. You have to really research a property, a location. And it's not just the people that were there. It's not just what the property was used for. It's all of it. It's the geology. It's everything about that location, because all of that is clues, right? And whenever we deal with folklore, or we deal with stories, or we deal with these things, we find that there is a little bit of fact and then a lot of stuff that gets added in there. So it kind of gets woven into what becomes the story or the urban legend. So you have to pull the facts out from that and separate those facts and folklore if you're going to truly try to get answers to what's going on with any mystery or with any haunting. And I think it's exactly the same in what we do in the paranormal. And I think if you don't, you end up going down that rabbit hole, right? I mean, you end up chasing something that might lead you to think you need to go in this direction, but what's happening is really over here, and you end up missing it.
Right.
So,
well, and the Earth, if you think about the Earth is a living, breathing planet, so to speak, right? And there's so many mysteries of the ocean, the seas, land. There's so many mysteries of Earth, and we just habitat. We just build our cities and our homes on top of this Earth. There's fault lines. There's these uh, fissures and all these different geographical things that are happening, and the gravity is still a mystery of how gravity truly works, the magnetism of the Earth, ley lines, all these things. So when you really look at the big picture, we're just these small little ants kind of running around trying to figure out these mysteries. And it's pretty cool when you look at these Bermuda triangles, these shipping lanes, things like that. There's some mysteries of the sea. Now, in this case, from what I'm hearing, this is the first time I heard the story, so I think it's cool. I would agree. Yeah, I think it was the nerve toxin. It makes the most plausible sense. As far as it catching on fire and sinking again. At this point, it was probably very susceptible to just a fire happening anyways, an untended ship getting towed. So, but I think just in the big picture, we're talking about like that Bermuda Triangle effect with the Malaysia plane. Again, there's just some real mysteries out there we just haven't truly been able to tackle yet.
absolutely. And I think that's what's so exciting about what we all do in these off the beaten path type of things, UFOologists and cryptozoology people and paranormal people. We're the ones that aren't, we're not afraid to talk about these things. And we really want to get answers to this stuff because it's fascinating. And these different theories about all these crazy things that happen. So anybody got any last thoughts on that?
On the case?
Anything in general related to that, whatever, at free fall at this point. We covered the ship, so
Yeah.
Well, even just piggybacking off what you just said too, is that it's easy for a lot of people to just to kind of duck their head down and just put their blinders on and just say and then just go about their 9-to-5 life, and then there's people like us that try to take those blinders off and say, so why is this happening? What's the deal? And so I think that's cool.
absolutely. So what do you guys want to cover now? What do you want to get into? The only other thing I had was some evidence that we could look at that we've captured. You guys want to talk some more paranormal? What do you guys want to talk about?
Rhonda, you've got somebody there visiting.
All right, somebody who wants to go? Open floor.
There's so much things, man. There's so much things we could talk about because the paranormal is so vast, right? So like we just talked about, there's so many things. I think we did cover a lot about the ghosts, clothes, things like that. And something I brought up last time, we talked about cavemen ghosts and things like that. Why don't we see caveman ghosts? So those are always interesting. I love talking about those oddities, the things that we still kind of wonder because we tend to see some of the same similar things in the spirit realms. So it makes you wonder what happened to the caveman ghosts, or is there a certain time limit that they're on in the spirit realm, and then they move on, or do they not have that particular covenant between the god and them, or something? Again, these are all things that I think are real interesting.
Or had they not evolved on a
spiritual plane,
spiritual and mental capacity to where that cognitive reasoning of finality didn't exist for them the way it does for us, that maybe they haven't tapped into how to leave that energy behind? I don't know. That's a great topic to discuss. What do you ladies think? I was talking to you, Al. Now, seriously, ladies, what do you guys think?
I've never actually thought about that before, but it does make sense that they probably have not evolved enough spiritually to have that connection.
See, what about animals, right? We've
I don't know. Well, now with animals, only recently have I encountered anything that well, it's the first time I ever encountered a spirit that was non-human that actually identified to me as an animal. So that was new for me. That was wild, and it was eye-opening, and kind of really changing in a lot of the ways that I think about investigations, and opened up a whole different avenue for me. So I think we do encounter more of these spirits. I think how we perceive them isn't always how what Rhonda may encounter may be different than what I see, just because of who we are. I think we encounter them not necessarily just on a visual level, but maybe an emotional level or a spiritual level. So it may not just be how they're presenting to everybody, but how they present to us individually.
Well, and it's also
Make sense?
Well, yeah, you raise a very good point, because we also connect, right? We all connect differently. It's sort of like why matrixing and pareidolia exists.
Mm-hmm.
If I look out there and I look at the clouds, I don't really see Mickey Mouse, right? I see a cloud and my mind says, oh, that looks like something familiar to me. It's Mickey Mouse. And maybe another reason we don't connect with cavemen is, well, we weren't cavemen or cave women. So we don't connect with them. We dismiss that as this strange anomaly or gibberish or whatever, because we literally don't know how to assign any logic to what that is. But it is interesting because it also makes you wonder about historical relevance to things. Is it because our history doesn't go back as far here as it does like in Europe, and maybe that's why we seem to only dip so far back? Or is it about dimensions and time? And is it more, there's theories out there that it's more that we're actually almost time traveling as much as we are talking to the dead. So there's a lot of schools of thought there.
Or could you train your brain to accept those things? So in other words, could I train myself and see a T-Rex ghost?
That's an interesting thought.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, because like there's been reports of dogs and cats, certain particular dogs and cats that have been seen by their previous owners or things like that. So again, it makes you wonder, are we actually seeing really dogs and cats, or are we just seeing a projection of, do they have souls, or do they have that spirit that
we see them because we want to?
Well,
right. So I have to kind of look at that, because if you start accepting that there can be dogs and cat ghosts, then again, now we're talking about how many species of animals out there. Is there all these ghost cows that are haunting these meat farms? I mean, good God.
But then that goes back to
bunch of little ghost chickens running around with their heads cut off.
Our encounter, Christina. I wasn't with you, but we had the same encounter with the animal.
Yes.
But I have also had there's an animal spirit at the Nickerson Fleet House that's not my animal. It's been there since we purchased the house. And I found out later that the Mason children did have a small dog, like a Pomeranian or something.
And you've had other teams come through that didn't know that have documented evidence of that.
Right. I've never told anyone that. This is the first time I've put it out there publicly. But I've also had animals that I've had that have presented themselves to me after they've passed for a period of time. But as far as the caveman thing goes, could that not be the shadow figures we're seeing? We just don't understand what it is. So
we can't assign it to what we are familiar with.
Right. We assign it something. Yeah.
Very interesting. Oh, I've got a comment popped up over here. Let me see.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying to read this. I'm sorry. My screen's not coming up. Hang on one second. Technical difficulty. I apologize. I know I've got a comment that's new, but it's not coming up. Here it is. Okay. Yeah, if you want to do that, Josh, that's fine with me. I mean,
I don't even know how I share EVPs. Do you?
I don't know how to do that on StreamYard yet, other than us loading them in the pre-side of things. But this is only the second time we've gone
Right.
live with StreamYard, so this is all new to us. But if you got a way to play it, I guess we'd be able to hear it through your audio. He's got an EVP to bring the rest of you guys up to speed. Sorry, I realize you guys don't see those comments, do you? No. Terry Lynn, who is Josh's wife, she's been on listening to us. She said she would love for us to hear the good EVP that she's referring to, and would like us to hear it. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm kind of looking here. I'm not even sure how I would be able to do that.
Well, if you can figure out how to do it, we'll keep talking while you look at it. But yeah, so that's that's an interesting point. I mean, these are the kind of things that I love sitting around and just talking about. I mean, I know we do on the road as a team. Sometimes we never really talked about the caveman thing, but we've talked about other things and shared experiences and different theories. And that's what I love about, our team, is that diversity. Yes, we have a style, and we have, we combine all these platforms, but there is individuality in some of our belief systems and what we think or what we subscribe to. And that's great, because it really keeps us open-minded to each other's perspective. And we don't go down a certain rabbit hole all the time and get, tunnel vision. We allow all those different belief systems to help forge, what experiences we're having. So I just think that's kind of cool.
So here's something. I'm sorry. I was going to say, here's something I'd like to
go ahead.
I'd like to throw out to you guys, because, why not? We got some time, right?
Yeah.
Here's something I'd love to throw out to you guys is, what, in your experience, the experiences that you have had, what is probably the most chilling type experience? What kind of really raised those, the hairs on the back of your neck and gave you those goosebumps the most? What was your most chilling experience?
I'll let one of you guys go first.
For me, it was a recent experience that we had at one of our locations. I won't say exactly which one, but I would say we encountered something on a different level that we'd not encountered before. And we had to approach it in a completely different way.
Is that you talking about when me and you had?
No, that one didn't. That was interesting and cool.
Oh yeah.
But
you're talking about the thing that presented itself that was not demonic but needed to go away.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
Exactly. And like I said, we had to approach that from a completely a new angle for us. We had to combine some other techniques, and we were successful in it. But I think it actually helped us advance as a group and as a team, as a family.
Absolutely. And I know that's kind of cryptic, but it's one of those things where sometimes, because of locations, if it not only residential, sometimes you're at known locations and you experience things or things happen that the people that own the property or are responsible for the property don't want you to release certain information,
right,
because it's personal to them or stigmatism or whatever. And what we documented and encountered was something different. And it was, I would agree, Christina, it was definitely an eye opener. And I hate talking cryptic like that, because I know people
I know.
Like, what are they talking about? But
I'd love to just lay it out, but
yeah, but it's one of the things you got to kind of skirt around the respect the property owner. Basically, we encountered something. It was definitely not demonic, but it was powerful, and it was not nice. And we had to think outside the box to find a solution to it, and we did, and we've been back multiple times since then. And we know that we were able to contain what the situation was. Rhonda, how about you? Your hair-raising experience in the paranormal?
That would have had to been, I think I was maybe 11 or 12, and we lived in this. It was an old 2-story house. I don't even know when it was built, but it was an old frame house, wood slat siding. But I was asleep one night, and I heard footsteps plain as day, heavy boots coming up the stairs. And I know I heard it because our dog jumped. She was at the foot of my bed and she jumped and she looked at the door and she was trembling. So like, oh my God. But when I yelled, Mom! And as soon as I yelled, it stopped. It just stopped. I'm like, oh my God, somebody's in my house. But she came upstairs and she said, oh, it's the pigeons in the roof. And I told her the next day, I said, I know what pigeons in the roof. And she said, yeah, but I need to get back to sleep.
Al?
I guess for me, the most hair-raising experience that I've had was probably when we were in the basement of the Bristol case, because that's the only place I can think of that I wouldn't have wanted to be by myself. Was in the basement of that house where we heard all those noises. We heard that on our walkthrough. We got that EVP of that guttural growling sound, and the backstory behind the Bristol location was I had a friend that owned it. It used to be a nursing home, and we went there, and she turned it into like a day spa and rented the basement out to this guy. And for a few days, she didn't see the guy, so she went downstairs and all the lights were off, and she had her cell phone in her hand and was shining her flashlight around and found him. He had hung himself in this basement. So that basement is probably the only hair-raising experience that I had as far as this is creepy, I don't like it.
Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit last week too, that case, and it's kind of funny that keeps coming back up. It makes me wonder if we don't need to reach out and see if we can get back in there, if that's even possible, because for some reason we keep talking about this case again, and we haven't talked about that case in years, and now all of a sudden it's a common topic for us. And in my experience, and
there's
I
no consequences, Matt.
Yes, exactly. You guys know that, how we feel about that. Sometimes we get called to locations for a reason. So there may be unfinished business there that we need to deal with. But interestingly about that particular case, this is a phenomenon that I've talked about a lot, is you've got your camera, you've got your recorder, you've got everything set up. You're like, yes, this is it. I've got it. I've captured it. I know it's on here. Now I heard it. I saw it. I felt it. Now we're going to go back and we're going to play it and look at it and do our review. And we're like, where the heck is it? What happened to it? How is it gone? How could that not be there? And that's what Al is talking about, is exactly what happened to us in that case. It literally sounded like somebody was ransacking that room, and we thought somebody came in and broke in so much that we went and checked the perimeter. And like I said last week, and we never found a source to that and did not capture that on a single camera, and we did not capture that on any of our audio devices, but yet we all heard it. And there was, 5 of us in the room that heard it? 4 or 5 of us. So it's just fascinating how that sometimes happens. But for me, probably the most hair-raising moment for me is probably 2, because it's the only 2 times that I've really felt this way in my personal experience. Probably at this point, I don't know, a few hundred investigations if I were guessing, but maybe more. I don't know, a lot. Was the first time that I had a physical contact. And it was not just being touched. It was when I was choked that time. That brushy was the first time it happened to me, where that thing grabbed my back of my neck, feeling a hand on the back of my neck, shoving me out of that cell. That was probably the most hair-raising moment for me, because it wasn't just a sound or a smell or an experience that I felt. It was a physical contact that I physically felt that interaction. That was probably the one that really shocked me the most. And then the worst experience related to that type of thing is when we came back from the infamous Hinsdale that we talk about a lot. And I've got to get that episode out and let people make their own mind up on what they think we experienced. But I know for me personally, for 2 to 3 weeks after that, you can ask my mom, my daughter, my wife, I experienced personality shift from that, not only there, but at home. I dealt with a little attachment issue from that location, and I have no doubt to this day that I did. So those are mine. You heard the rest. How about you, Josh? What's your hair raiser?
God, well, and like we always talk about, there's so many different moments in your paranormal career that, like when you get touched, and when you hear EVPs, when your evidence reviews, there's a lot of hair raising moments. I think for me, the biggest shocker I had was about 5 years ago ish, and it's right here in Bristol. And I was at work, and my job at the time, the particular task I had to do was I had to change a component on the outside of a house. So in fact, this is a story out of my book, actually. But it's that because it's that impactful for me. But I had to change a component on the outside of the house. So of course, the first thing you do is you go up and you knock on the door, and you want to obviously let the customer know, hey, I'm about to, cut off your cable and internet and phone for a few minutes. So you got to let them know that. So I knocked on the door, and an old man came to the door, and very polite. And I explained to him what I had to do, and he said, that's no problem. So I went around, and this is the middle of the day. So you're not even in the mindset of creepiness. You're not even in the mindset of scary or anything like that. It's sunny out. It's a beautiful day. You just don't even think about it. So I'd go around to the side of the house and the other side of the house, and I'm putting the device up and everything. I remove the old one, put up the new one. I do all this stuff, and the way that there's this bush, okay, it's like a holly bush too, so it pokes you. So it's really, you can't just kind of dive into the bush and work right there. You had to kind of work off to the side. So I'm kind of reaching in between the house and this bush, and there's a window right here in front of me. Okay, now again, sun's blaring, and you can't see inside the house. It's just dark, and you got to screen the window, and you can't really see anything. And then, and I'm getting ready to be done, and all of a sudden, I kind of turn and look, and there is an old woman, very ashy in color, right there. Okay, staring at me. And it caused me to jump, of course. And I'm like, oh, and in my mind, instantly I'm thinking, okay, I just scared some poor woman, and because she saw me jump, and just, it's that whole reverse psychology, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm sorry if I frightened you. I'm like, sorry, I didn't mean to jump. And I'm trying to yell through this window, and I just see her kind of like fade back into the darkness. Just very solemn face, didn't really make much expression change. And I just was like, oh, that's kind of creepy. So I, again, thinking it was just, I scared this woman. I went around back to the customer and knocked on the door. And of course, the gentleman came to the door, and I said, sir, I went ahead and got everything up and running for you again. Could you go ahead and, check your services, make sure your TV and internet and phone's back on. So a few minutes later, he comes back to the door and says, yeah, everything's working. I said, okay, great. Oh, hey, by the way, if you could just let your wife know, I apologize. I hope I didn't, make her jump. He said, oh, no, my wife, passed away about 4 years ago. So at that moment, I still didn't quite get the chills yet. I instantly thought to myself, okay, I just assumed that's not good. I shouldn't do that. I said, well, I'm sorry. I said, well, whoever the woman was, just let her know I apologize, and hopefully. And he's like, no, it's just me here. And then that's when he said it was just him there. That's when everything kind of popped up, and I was like, oh my God, because in like I said, in all my years, I saw that full apparition when I was 15, but I saw this woman so vividly and so close. it's just, again, it's rare. Like I've been in investigations, dark shadows, partial things, myths, all these things, but to see just that full, vivid face right there. And then the next part of this, there's a one little follow up, which is I, of course, called Terry Lynn right away. I was like, oh my God. And she's like, well, what's the customer's name? And she likes to do a lot of our research. So she researched it and she showed me the obituary of this woman. Yeah, it was her. So it just really, the hairs went back up again.
Wow.
When I saw the image, she's like, was this what you saw? And I'm like, oh my God. Yes, that's who I saw. A little older in the actual face I saw was an older version of the obituary picture. Because they used like a picture where she was like probably in her 50s or 60s. But still,
You can still tell. Yeah.
you know, it was her. And that was just, again, that super validation in my mind going, oh my God, I just saw something so vivid and chilling. It just stuck out to me. That's one of those things, man. It's just very rare, but when it happens, whoo, man.
Yeah.
It typically happens when you least expect it. And then you have to do a double take and you're like, did I just see that? And then you get your validation like you did. And I tell people all the time that come to the Nickerson Sleep House, most of my experiences are when I'm up there working. I'm not investigating. I just want to do my work and left alone. That's not what happens. But I tell all the investigators that come up, if you don't ask questions, you just go about doing your business, drop cameras, just hold the recorders and go about your business. You're going to get a lot more than if you say, hey, is anybody here?
Yeah, and that's an interesting point too. That's why it's so important to make sure you have, and even with all the experience we have, we sometimes still don't think about this. Having that recorder going when you, whatever you're setting up, whenever you're doing, always have a recorder going, because it is. You'll be listening to just talking, while you're setting up, and there's random EVPs that pop in there. So yeah, I think we even forget to do that still to this day. Sometimes we get excited and get in that mode,
Yeah, you get hyper focused sometimes on certain things, and you forget about other things. You're like, oh man, God, I can't believe I didn't have that, or sometimes you think you have the footage and you lost it, or whatever.
Or it mysteriously just stops recording.
Right?
Yeah.
Battery drains.
Batteries.
Like that. It's crazy. I mean, it really is. And Matt, you and I, we talked about this too, and I think you guys we talked a little bit about it. You guys did on the last show was, there's things that sometimes we visually see, and then there's things that we seem to capture on as evidence. We go back at these reviews, and you hear something, you hear somebody yell your name or something, and then you go back on the evidence and you go to that moment, you don't hear it on actual physical recording. But then there's times you hear things on the recording that you didn't hear in person. So,
yep, had it both ways for sure. Had those experiences where sure we captured it and didn't, or the other way, thought like nothing happened there that night, and then go back and go, holy crap, where was I? Because all this shit was happening and I missed it. I mean, it's like,
right,
it's kind of crazy.
Look at all the paranormal activity I didn't see while I was there, but it's around me.
Absolutely. So here's a question that was from the first hour that we didn't get to, but while we're on this topic, it's sort of relevant. What's the one thing you would change in this industry if you could? The one thing, if you could just change one thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The idiots. The idiots. For all the people that are out there that are overreacting, jumping to conclusions, and all these things, it just diminishes from all the people that are truly trying to research and to learn things. Again, as I said before, I do understand the balance between entertainment, because let's face it, there is an adrenaline rush. There's some entertainment value to the paranormal. I get that. Like, I'm part of that. I understand that. But there's a difference between entertaining people and then, of course, just absolutely taking away from the integrity of the industry. So the people that are out there just being idiots, and yes, there's a shock value, and people are lining up to watch it at times. but it diminishes our industry for legitimacy. So,
I agree. Anybody else want to take a stab on what they change in the industry?
Well, going along with Josh, the idiots, the ones that come in and don't know what the heck they're doing, and they create issues that we've encountered some of this that we have to go in and fix because they've done something stupid and invited something in, didn't know how to close the portal, didn't know not to invite it in or how to contact one thing instead of something else. It was messing with things they don't understand.
Or my other favorite is they think they know how to fix it because they watched a certain show where it's always demons that are fixed by lighting sage. You know what I'm talking about. And they take the wrong steps to try and mitigate the problem, and then all they do is make it worse because they make it mad. So that's my other favorite. Al, what do you want to change in the industry? I know you're petitioning for everybody to have no ghost outfits and only be naked, but besides
that's probably the one thing I would say. No, I guess the idiots too. I mean, people faking paranormal experiences for TV, things like that. I understand, like Josh said, there's an entertainment value that you gotta put out there, but I just, if you have to fake it, why are you even doing it?
Reputation, everything.
Or add some unrealistic element that just doesn't logically make sense. That you see that too, and that you don't need that. It's like we've talked about this privately. I know all of us have. Some locations have great history. They don't need embellishments. They don't need to have all these added stories that are added to sell books or to get on TV or boost YouTube ratings or whatever. They don't need it. What's really going on there is enough, and there's several places, and I'm not going to call them out on air because that's not right, but I just think there's a lot of places that happens, and I hate to see that because I think that actually attracts the wrong people. It attracts those thrill seekers that are really not doing this for the right reasons.
Right. And you think about the amount of idiots out there that are doing things, and this goes back into what even just amateurs, people that aren't even investigators, but people that are just doing things out of curiosity. Well, so if you think about this is just a little thought stuff I want to throw out there to you. We have in the world, we have in the thousands, the numbers, right? We have in the thousands of investigators, whether they're teams, individuals, in numbers in the thousands. However, if you do a Google search for Ouija boards, you're going to find that you're going to get about 7.9 million results. Okay.
Wow.
Now, here's the scarier thing. This is scary. You Google how to open a portal to hell, you get 31.6 million hits. Think about that.
So the message there is there's a lot of idiots out there poking around with stuff that they don't know what the heck they're doing or shouldn't be poking around with it.
And how do you think that's affecting the big picture when you've got all of these, maybe even in the millions of amateurs throughout the world that are dabbling in some of these dark arts? Yep. I mean,
without thinking they can harness it and not knowing what they're tapping into. That's even scarier.
Right.
Think about a broke clock. They still write twice a day. So just because they don't know what they're doing doesn't mean there isn't unintended consequences.
Right. And that was a little bit of what I wanted to kind of make that point when Rhonda was talking about that a little bit with people doing things like that and stuff. I just wanted to kind of make that big picture point of what we're looking at as a world of what it's doing.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Very interesting. Well, we got about 10 minutes left in the segment. Anything you guys want to hit? I think we've hit a lot of topics. Anything you guys want to go over or add or talk about? I'm definitely going to plug Josh's book one more time. Make sure you get Josh's book. And
we've really hit some good topics tonight. I'm really proud of some of the things we talked about. I think all y'all had some really good points. And I think we hit some pretty good hard hitting. I always like to dive into the core topics of paranormal, because there's some superficial things we could talk about, but in all honesty, man, talking about some of the subjects we did, we really hit some good core stuff tonight. So that makes me happy.
Yeah, me too. And I think that's, I've said this a lot too, and I think everybody on this panel agrees. We need to do more of this in the paranormal community. There needs to be more of this sharing stories. And I'm not talking about, the stories of the cool experiences. I'm talking about experience, sharing that experience, because there's something that I can learn from you, and there's something you can learn from me, and there's something we can learn from Rhonda and Christina and Al and so on and so forth on down the line. It just makes it better. And the more that we do that, the more we're going to validate what it is that we do. And it's the only way we're going to get that, that baseline of basic integrity going on across the board. And that's something that's going to change in the future for the paranormal. I feel pretty confident.
Right.
Go
ahead, Christina.
Well, the one thing that we would change, yes, the idiots, but unity amongst investigators.
Yes.
Drop the ego. Let's all just share our information, our theories, our experience. And I think we could change the world if we would just get rid of the egos.
I absolutely agree.
And I was going to add one thing with Matt with past that was one question I remember was about horror movies or paranormal movies. What's some of your favorite maybe paranormal or horror movie for whatever reason?
Yes. So that's a good one. We can hit that for a minute. What's yours, Josh? Because I think everybody knows what mine is.
Okay. Well, I think I'm not a horror fan. Okay. I don't like to be made to jump. Okay, so scary movies. Scary movies, I just don't want to watch them with a passion. But my wife loves them, so she forces me to sit through these agonizing hour and a half, 2 hour movies that make me jump and stuff. And there's some really, really good ones. There's some creepy ones. The most impactful one for me at first back in the day was White Noise, because when we first watched it really kind of hit home. And even though they added some elements to it, the whole EVP, it was all based around EVPs and stuff. And so it was pretty cool. Michael Keaton did a good performance in it for the most part. And then what's the movie? Another one that got to me a little bit that really had some good elements in it, and I really like some of the cinematography. What's the one where it was like inherited or it was it was about almost like a little bit of satanic worship in there.
Insidious, the original Insidious.
Maybe
the one where that red face thing peeks around the woman's shoulder in the dining room.
Maybe, I'm not sure. With the lady, she had the mother that passed away.
Heredity.
Yeah.
Right. Like that movie, when that dude was sitting in the car after what happened to his sister, I don't know if I should spoil anything, but when after that incident and that dude's just sitting there, not wanting to look back there or in the mirror, that to me was just an impactful moment. Man, after what happened, there were some parts of that movie I thought were pretty good. I think that movie was I enjoyed it to a point.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody else want to hit a horror movie?
My favorite all time that scared the crap out of me. I watched it. I think it came out in '82, so I'm not gonna tell my age, but anyway. It was The Changeling, and the star was George C. Scott, and it was, you didn't see anything. You saw small things like a ball bounce down the steps.
It was worse up here.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. There was no gore. There was no ghosts that you could actually see, and that really just scared the Jesus out of me when I was a kid.
See, I prefer those. I actually prefer movies like that I don't need that much. I don't need Saw. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't
Ugh.
need that grotesqueness. I need more of the suspense. Like, for example, if you're in the tunnels at Hell's Bar Dam and a ball comes flying out of nowhere. Now, logically, you realize that is not paranormal, that it's a para-ass, which is a totally different class of haunting that we sometimes see. So my point is that is more suspenseful though than the scare stuff. The big ticket scare.
Well, think about it. Think about it. I mean, we all kind of laugh about it now, but think about when even the Blair Witch came out, right? These kids shot this, and if you think about it, this is almost the very first almost YouTube style of a movie.
Yeah.
It was almost like a first person at times. They're in the woods. You see that all the time now. These urban explorers going through the woods at night, and all this stuff, except in this. And there wasn't hardly anything explained truly. We didn't see a lot of gore, grotesque. It just was a lot left in the imagination. Of course, when they marketed, they made you think it was recovered footage. And,
right.
I went into it thinking it was real. It was actually real recovered footage that they put together. I didn't learn until after the fact when I written research it. They're like, man, but I just wanted to make that point though.
But it worked. I mean, didn't it? I mean, it was believable that was lost footage. It really sold that because I thought the same thing when it first came out. I was like, holy
minimalistic, but it worked. Imagination.
Small budget, but huge payoff for them at the box office. I mean, it really worked. That's why I think Stephen King is so good at what he does, because his mind is so out there. But he does that without all of the added things that you really don't need.
It's hard to translate his work to screen, though. That's the problem with his.
Yeah, it's true. His books are awesome, but I like his stuff. I mean, the way he thinks, the way he does things is just kind of interesting. So we've got like a couple minutes left. Is there anything else you guys want to hit? I'm good. I've covered everything I got. We did have some evidence clips that we didn't play because the reason we loaded them up, we got to talking and I forgot to play them, but we had loaded them up because somebody had asked, is the Nickerson Sneed really that active? And we talked about a few experiences there. But as everybody knows, it is our home haunt. And yes, it is that active. I today started going back and looking at just a few pieces of evidence. And there's so much evidence. There's so many things that have happened that we kind of put aside, I guess, where we've gotten spoiled now. We throw out so much more than we keep, right? I mean,
isn't it funny how that happens?
Yes. But now I go back and I go, wow, that's a good piece of evidence too. It's not as good as that piece, but it's really good. So I would tell you what, these are two short little things. We'll go ahead and get your take on them, Josh. And we'll put them up because in case that lady that was on here the other night, I can't remember her name, I'm terrible at names, but she was asking how active it is. This is just two little short examples, and there's many, many more. Christina, I want you to talk about this photo. I'm going to put up the photo of the window of the figure that we caught back in 2015, the first time we were there, 16, the very first time we were there.
I forgot about that one.
Do you remember the photo I sent you, Christina, with the figure in the window?
From outside.
Huh?
Yes, from outside. Outside. Yes.
Okay, so let me set up this picture and tell you. Terry Lynn says she still wants to go to the NSH when it's not dressed up wrong. Yes, you guys need to come up there with us one night. You guys will have a lot of fun. I'm sure Rhonda can make that happen. I mean, she knows the owner real well. So.
And it never disappoints.
No.
So I've heard.
But let me set the stage real quick for this photo. And this is the first investigation that we ever went up there and did. And this was before most of these guys were on the team. And I had just met Rhonda, and literally, I think that morning or maybe the day before, I can't remember. I think it was the day before, and we came back and did the pictures and the artifact recovery the next day. So we had done a walkthrough, and on the walkthrough, I've actually got that piece of evidence on here too. On the walkthrough, we were sitting down in the dining area, and we heard what sounded like footsteps going around the stairs, which happens a lot there above us on the wooden floor. So I said, would you mind if I grab my recorder and see if I can see what it is? So I went from interview mode to investigator mode because you can't help it. That's how we're wired, right? So I grabbed my Tascam recorder. and I went up the stairs, and as I'm going up the stairs, I captured the footsteps, the audible footsteps, not mine, the boot-sounding footsteps. But what I captured was even more important than that. As I opened the door to go into this room, the little room that's off of the red room, I say hello, and I don't hear anything back. I don't hear an audible response. But I captured something that is pretty cool. It's a pretty compelling EVP. Now, setting the stage for that. The next day, we come back. We're going to do the investigation that night. We're doing the relic recovery in the yard, which we're metal detecting the yard, GPS coordinate, marking anything that we find, then taking those, giving those items to Rhonda to display, but we also use them as trigger items. And we did find a part of a microscope that Rhonda later identified as a microscope that matches the time period of Dr. Sneed. So that was kind of a cool artifact that we recovered that she now displays in the museum that we actually used as a trigger. But we took over 200 pictures of the exterior of the house. Now, I've got the cropped in, zoomed in one here. When we were doing this, they were getting ready to set up for Halloween. So this might have been probably late August, early September-ish. And we went ahead and had taken all these exterior pictures outside. The only people that was there was Rhonda and the two people she had with her, and then myself and the other two investigators or the other one investigator that was with me. Rhonda and her two people that were with her was Dee Dee and somebody else. You guys were out in the parking lot working on a prop. Right. Nobody is in the building. The building is completely empty. So here is the picture. Now there's 12 frames, and there's only one frame that has this in it. And then I'll have Christina talk a little bit about this particular piece. So I'm going to put it up on the screen for y'all. If you look right in the center bottom window pane, you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see it, Josh?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see
now,
that.
From having been on the inside and the outside, knowing the time and date and everything, all the information about the camera, I have absolutely no explanation for what you're seeing right there. Now, for the size and shape of what I think we can all agree appears to be a human head,
right,
with shoulders, the height that they would be at. Rhonda, how tall would you have to say somebody was to be having that kind of a reflection in that window?
Child size.
Because that's the gift shop window.
Right.
Yeah. Would you say child size?
Yeah, I'd say child size.
So
Yeah,
we're talking 3.5, maybe 4 feet tall at the most.
Yeah, maybe 4 foot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing that's really interesting about this photo is when you go inside the house at the time that this photo was taken, there used to be this big, I don't know what you'd call it. It was a sewing machine table. It was like a
sewing machine table, yeah.
Right.
And there was no lamps on there. There's a lamp. You can see the shade in the opposing window. That's the only lamp that's in there. There's nothing on that side. But that thing sticks out about 3 feet away from the window. So there's no way anybody could be in that part of the room peering out that window for the simple fact that you couldn't get close enough. And to recreate this shot, and I should have loaded those up. I didn't think about that. But to recreate the shot, and I may do that in a future episode, but to recreate the shot, we sent an investigator inside and tried to set the lighting as best we could and recapture the picture. And when we did that, we were able to get a shadow figure in the room, but they appear much further back in the room. We could not get them to stand anywhere close enough, taking the picture from the same angle, with the same camera, with the same lens, and recreate that photo. And of all the photos that I have taken in my paranormal career, this is the only one that I will say is, in my opinion, evidence. Because all the others I could explain or have had Christina look at, and she's explained away. Christina, honestly, in looking at metadata and everything, is there anything you can come up with that says this is anything other than
No, because I always look for that. I mean, Matt, there's only, in all the years that I have been tearing apart photos, and that's really what I do when I analyze one. I literally tear it apart pixel by pixel. And there's a handful that I can't explain. This is one of them. And the fact that I have a series of before and after, taken from the same camera with the same lens from the same viewpoint, that I have a comparison with, gives it even more validity. I have absolutely zero explanation for what appears to be the shadow of a human child in that window.
Yeah, it's absolutely one of my favorite captures in all of the years that I've been doing this. But there's also another photo. I don't have it loaded up, but Rhonda, maybe you could get it to me and I'll load it up for the future. But it's another one that Christina tore apart as a partial apparition that was actually captured standing next to Rhonda by a friend of hers that you also tried to.
Oh, that was mind blowing. Yeah.
Were unable to debunk as well, correct?
I did. When I first saw the photo, I assumed, just looking at it, that it was a shadow of someone in the room. Well, when I found out more information, there was no person there. They appear to be wearing wasn't it a top hat, I believe?
No, but they had glasses on that you could see through the glasses. You could see through the lenses.
Oh yeah, you could. So you could see like the refraction from the glass, and there was nobody in the room that could have possibly been. It was so wild. There's been a few photos from the Nickerson Sneed. There's another one from another window, actually, in the back part of the house. That's pretty cool. I've looked at time and time again, trying and hoping that I can find an explanation for, and so far I haven't been able to.
And for those that don't know Christina's background, photography was her background, and then she merged that with a love of paranormal. So it really is awesome for us to have somebody that has the skills to forensically break down a photo. And she's not gentle about it. I mean, she tears it apart. She tries her best to say, you know, I'm sorry. She will crush you, and that's what we love about it. And that's a good thing. I mean, that's really a good thing. And literally, we have had pictures sent in from all over the place that Christina has looked at. We from time to time get people sending photos and say, hey, can you look at this? And, you know, she'll give her honest opinion. We'll always tell them, look, she's going to give you an honest opinion. You may not like it. We had one that looked like it was probably too good to be true. And when she dug it down, she proved it was a Photoshop job.
Yeah. And people get upset about that.
But it's
they
great.
Do. They get angry.
So, Josh, what do you think about that piece of evidence?
I think it's good. I looked at it, and you know, just based on experience alone, you can just look at it and tell that, you know, given the size of the head, where it's at, you know, and me not even know, like I have been in the gift shop right there, you know, when we did the haunted house stuff, but even then, just knowing that, like, there, to me, you can kind of tell based on lighting, the angle.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, when you have somebody maybe standing in a window of a size that head, you normally see some distinguishable features. You get a little bit of 3D appearance to that. This is completely dark and completely outlined in that shape of the head. So there you don't seem to have any light reflecting off of it like you would if it was an actual person standing there. I mean, I feel like it's a legitimate piece of evidence.
Yeah, and the other cool thing is that Christina said, I sent her the sequence of photos, probably 10 or so photos before and 10 or photos after. So there's like 30 frames that are shot in that couple of seconds. And there's only one picture where that anomaly is present.
Right.
Which is to me even more compelling.
When you do your due diligence like that, that's what separates good investigators from, again, people that just do something, they go, well, this has got to be it. This got to be. But when you take the time to not only look at other pictures, but then you went back and even tried to debunk it, you know, and that's good when you try to recreate it the best you can. If you can't do that, you can't recreate it, then again, all you're left with is an anomaly you can't explain. Therefore, it's probably paranormal.
Absolutely. And that's another great point, too. I know we're about out of time, but I just wanted to touch on this, and then I'll show you this other clip real quick.
We're in overtime, baby.
I know.
Yeah.
But real quick, though, but the other thing that I think that goes with that, too, is you, by doing that, you know, we capture anomalies. There are times that we go back and try and debunk it, and we can't really explain it, but we still can't say, yeah, I think that is. this is one for me that I really feel confident. I have no objection saying that I honestly believe that I captured the child spirit, one of the child spirits that's up there. I mean, I honestly believe that. Rhonda, you encounter that a lot at that particular place, the spirits. What do you think? Who do you think that is that we captured on film?
Oh, I think that's Betsy, because we fought in the same voice several times, and that's just my gut feeling. I think that's her.
You talking about the child photo of ours, or the one?
No, I thought you were talking about the audio clip.
No. I'm sorry. I was talking about the photo.
That's Josephine.
See, that's exactly how I feel too, and so that's interesting that we captured that there in that way. So this next clip I'm going to show you guys real quick, and then I promise we'll wrap it up. But here is this is Kevin. This is the end of an investigation. It's Al, Kevin, and myself. We had been at the Nickerson Sneed for several hours that night. This was the last session. This is the where Kevin gets touched now. This is what I'm talking about. So we had done these sessions, and we'd had a great night. We'd had a lot of stuff. In fact, I'm going to pull some more of these clips out to play in the future, because it's just such great evidence that we got. And I'm going to try to, if I can play the right one here, I'll play it without the overlay. And it's a spirit box session, but we modify our spirit boxes. We take the antennas out, so there's no AM/FM antenna, and they're in Faraday bags. And we're very careful to really pay attention to what we're doing when we use them. Now, if you've seen the rest of the clip, and unfortunately I'm limited to 30 seconds and 30 megabytes on StreamYard, so we're going to put these up on the website so people can see it in their entirety eventually. But if you would hear all the stuff before, you will hear long periods of time with nothing coming across that spirit box. So here is the clip, and if I start the wrong one, I'll stop it, because I've got the overlay and unoverlaid on.
My right shoulder.
Something touched your right shoulder? For real?
For real.
Awesome.
Something touched my right shoulder.
Did somebody just touch Kevin? On the shoulder. Yes, that was you?
Nobody's killed that.
So, did you guys catch that there's two responses there? It's really clear with headphones, but did you guys catch the two responses? There's also two other parts to that I think really validate that experience.
I heard one. I don't know if, because again, I don't have headphones. I heard one of the responses. It would really been interesting to have almost a thermal on that, to see if there was any difference on his shoulder. I always find that's something I would love to personally have. I never owned a thermal. They were always too expensive for me back in the day. And now they're getting more affordable, but
oh yeah,
you get touched,
sure.
man. I'd love to see more thermal footage of things like that. But I mean, as far as that goes, I mean, I heard the one response.
Yeah, on the shoulders, which is the exact. It's validation. It's a direct answer. I said, did someone just cut Kevin on the shoulders? And the answer to that was on the shoulders, which is where he said he was touched. Now, I have another clip that's not loaded up tonight, but I have it, and I have it all documented and ready. It shows the data from the EDI. And at the exact moment that Kevin is touched, there is a spike in EMF, there is a drop in pressure, and a drop in temperature at the exact time he is touched. And he even says his whole body is chilling. If you caught that, he makes that comment in the clip. There's also one final thing that right before that, right after he says that, you hear yep. So I'll play it with the overlay. Now there's going to be confirmation bias because I just told you that. But now think of it from him having the physical response, the environmental data being captured, and the direct responses from a antenna-less device.
My right shoulder.
Something touched your right shoulder? For real?
For real.
Awesome.
Something touched my right shoulder.
Did somebody just touch Kevin? On the shoulder. Yes, that was you?
Nobody's killed that.
So I don't know. I find that to be, really pretty cool. pretty cool evidence. And Rhonda had to go. She'd been on here quite a while. But I found that to be pretty cool. It says, is she the housekeeper or the nanny? I feel like she takes care of kids. She's talking about Betsy, I think. Or is that who you're talking about, Misty? Are you talking about Misty Moon? Are you talking about Betsy? She'll answer us in just a minute, but I think that might be who she's talking about. But anyhow, I wanted to really touch real quick on that piece of evidence. When you have all those parts, you have somebody being touched, you have somebody actually, you have a direct response on an ITC device, and you have environmental data. I think that's pretty compelling. And I think that really makes the case of what we're trying to do. So those are the type of pieces of evidence that we really try to bring out and try to use when we do that. I'm not sure.
And real quick, here's the difference. Again, this is what I try to explain to people. That's the difference between it. If you just saw that clip, I mean, you take that clip and you put it on TV, you put it anywhere to anybody. Of course, there's never enough evidence for the skeptic. But you take that clip alone, people just be like, who knows? Maybe a guy, who knows, right? But the fact that you're able to have that additional validation evidence, that cross-validation that we talk about, because you're able to say, hey, at that moment, we had the spike in the EMF, we had the drop in the pressure, we had these different occurrences all happen at that moment. See, that's the difference. And that's what we always try to talk about in the world of paranormal. So it's important. These are important lessons. If people watch this and they're involved in and they're getting into ghost hunting, these are the lessons you need to learn. Is don't just do one thing. If you can, have other instruments going, capture additional data to go along with that experience.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I think it's been a great show. Anything you want to say before we hang up, Al?
No, I think it's been a good night.
All right, Christina?
Been a great show.
Josh?
Always a pleasure to talk with you, Josh.
Yes, thank you. I want to say, I do want to say something as I leave.
Yes,
thank you all. Thank you guys again for the great show. I know it's been a long show, but I think to me, I don't mind having long shows if they're great. And I think this was a great show. We covered a lot of different topics. In fact, Matt, I would even throw this out there to you. I would say, look, why don't we look at maybe doing another show like this on one of your gatherings? What if we focus specifically on evidence? I think that would be a fun show.
Yeah, for sure.
Get some evidence that you guys had. Maybe I can send you a few of our EVPs again that we had.
Sure.
That I had my other show on, but also maybe scout around the internet, grab some other pieces of evidence that's been out there, some good, maybe bad. So I think it'd be cool to do a whole show dedicated on looking at EVPs, videos. And
so
again,
like an evidence roundtable.
Sure. I think that would be amazing, man. Get you guys like a panel, like I said, get you guys on here and we'll just go through these different ones, talk about them if we think, and sure, we can never be sure on third party stuff, but hey, let's talk about them and see if there's maybe you could scout around some good things, good pieces of evidence to debate. So that would be for sure. Cool. I just think that would be a fun show for you guys to do on the gathering one.
Yeah, for sure.
We need to get you in contact with Taryn from Paranormal Brew too, and maybe because she's got tons of EVPs, and maybe she would be a good guest for you.
Mm-hmm.
She's the Brood be a real good guest for you guys.
Yeah,
hey,
for sure. Well, Josh, thanks for being on. And I'm sorry.
I said I'm open for it.
Absolutely. So everybody, don't forget Josh's book, and don't forget to check out and subscribe to his YouTube channel, the Everything Paranormal Show. He's got a great show. He's a great guy. We enjoy working with him, and we look forward to him getting out in the field because I'm sure he's going to come out and join us some, and we're going to do some collaborative stuff outside of these type of broadcasts, but actually in the field, hands-on. So everybody, thank you for joining us tonight, and those of you that watch this later. As always, if you have any questions for us, if we can't answer them, we can get in touch with people like Josh and other people through our network, and we can get you the answers that you seek. So everybody stay careful and stay safe and be careful. Wow, long show. I'm going to shoot the outro, and then we'll be off the air. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. That's the intro.